All right, good afternoon, everyone. We want to thank you for taking the time to join us on this Monday afternoon. We are excited to have you with us. Just a quick announcement. We do want to remind all of our Magnolia members that we are currently accepting votes for our board of directors. So please check your email and make sure if you are an active member that you have cast your vote in our board of director elections. Also, tomorrow is the deadline for applications for School Counselor of the Year. So it's not too late. You can hop in the portal and apply or finish your application for School Counselor of the Year. Tomorrow is the deadline for that. Thank you so much for being with us. This afternoon, we are really excited to have Kayla Finn with Erica's Lighthouse here. She is going to be talking to us about a topic that I know personally as a school counselor is something that we are dealing with every day. And that is an upstream approach that depression education is suicide prevention. And we are certainly all about that work as school counselors. So we are very excited to have Kayla with us today. If you have questions, we do hope to have a Q&A time at the end of the presentation. Please feel free to put questions into the chat and we will make sure that we have time to address those as the presentation proceeds. So without further ado, I want to say thank you, Kayla, for joining us, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yep, our title is an upstream approach. Depression education is suicide prevention. Just a little bit about me. I'm the school support coordinator at Erica's Lighthouse, so I help people implement our resources at the school level. Originally, I'm from Washington, D.C. and Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, but now I live in Chicago. I graduated from University of Michigan, and I spent 2 years teaching in Chicago public schools on the West Side. One thing I like to do to take care of my mental health is to read or to spend time with my friends. So we're going to talk a bit about the current youth mental health statistics, some signs and symptoms of depression and suicide, helping a student, and then Erica's Lighthouse programming and how our resources can help you do all of those things. So first, I want to show this graphic from the CDC. This is from 2024, and it indicates poor mental health and suicidal thoughts and behaviors worsened from 2013 to 2023. Specifically, there were increases in the percentage of students who experienced persistent feelings of sadness or hopelessness, seriously considered attempting suicide, made a suicide plan, and attempted suicide. 2-year changes show a recent decrease in the percentage of high school students who experience persistent feelings of sadness and hopelessness from 2021 to 2023, but all the other experiences and behaviors did not change. So in summary, this shows that 4 out of 10 students felt persistently sad or hopeless in 2023, and nearly 1 in 3 students experienced poor mental health. Relating to suicide specifically, the statistics are very alarming and widespread. Youth and young adults aged 10 to 24 account for 15% of all suicides. And for high school students in 2023, 20% of them reported seriously considering attempting suicide, and 9% reported attempting suicide. According to the National Institute for Health, suicidal behaviors have increased 40% for high school students, and suicide has gone from being the number 3 cause of death to the second leading cause of death for young people. So as these troubling numbers continue to be a concern, we know that effective mental health education is more important than ever. We also want to talk about depression by the numbers because depression is the number 1 risk factor for suicide. An estimated 5 million children aged 12 to 17 have at least one major depressive episode, especially at-risk populations, which include females and people from the queer community. Depression is the most common mental health disorder that is accompanied by co-occurring disorders, and 3 out of 4 teens with depression have also been diagnosed with anxiety, and half have been diagnosed with behavior problems. 50% of mental health disorders begin before age 14, and 75% occur before age 24. Childhood depression is more likely to persist into adulthood if gone untreated. And 20% of young people will experience a major depressive episode before age 20, which we could think about in a class of 25. is about 4 kids. So it's really important that we understand the signs and symptoms so we can intervene sooner rather than later. To talk about why we take an upstream approach, there are more kids affected by depression than by suicide. So by taking that upstream approach, we can reach all students earlier with this education. Desmond Tutu has this quote, there comes a point in time where we need to stop pulling people out of the river. We need to go upstream and find out why they're falling in. So that's why we do this upstream approach. If we look at this chart, the dot is one loss from suicide. And while so tragic, it is actually very rare. But if we look at this as a school of 2,000 students, we can see that 180 students will attempt suicide. 400 students, or 20%, will seriously consider suicide. 40% of students will report symptoms of depression. 70% of students will believe anxiety and depression are serious problems among their peers. And almost the entire school will believe that anxiety and depression are problems among their peers. So by being aware of depression and talking about it, we're trying to identify those struggling adolescents before they get to the point of taking their own life. 1 out of 5 young people will experience depression before adulthood, and 50% will be symptomatic by age 14. So the need for early identification is critical. We don't know who will attempt suicide and who won't, but depression education captures all of those people. It's important to remember that people make attempts because they lose hope, and depression education provides hope that things can get better. Then we'll go over the signs and symptoms of depression. It can look different for everyone, but in order to be a diagnosis for depression, there are particular symptoms. They must include at least feeling sad or having a depressed mood, or a loss of interest and pleasure in activities that you used to enjoy, along with 4 other symptoms on the list. These have to be a change from what's normal for that individual, and they have to last for at least 2 weeks. So besides the feeling sad or depressed and loss of interest, that might look like a kid losing appetite or changes in their appetite, weight loss or gain unrelated to dieting, trouble sleeping or sleeping too much, a loss of energy or increased fatigue, less physical activity, slowed movements and speech, feelings of worthlessness or guilt, difficulty thinking, concentrating, or making decisions, and thoughts of death or suicide. It's important to make sure we're using the right words when we describe various parts of mental health and mental illness because it helps improve mental health literacy, and interchanging terms can lead to misunderstanding and misrepresentation of people's experiences and emotions. So although they do overlap and share some symptoms, sadness and depression are very different experiences with different causes and significance. So understanding the difference is crucial to getting the right kind of help if needed and being clear about the language used to tell others how we feel. Mislabeling depression as sadness can minimize its seriousness and discourage seeking help. So sadness is often connected to a specific cause. It's temporary and typically passes after using coping strategies. While depression doesn't always have a direct cause, it might be triggered by a situation or a trauma, but it could just be something else. It's about the overall well-being and quality of life, not just your emotions. It's a diagnosable mood disorder, and it lasts longer than 2 weeks, and symptoms can intensify without treatment. Depression in teens might look different because teens do become more irritable and develop a more self-defeating attitude just in general. So for some, it might look like a more aggressive reaction to things or acting out. These are going to be different for each student, but if it's a noticeable change in that kid, you'll want to take note and consider that something might be going on. So there is irritability. Teens are good at making people not want to be around them, but it could also be a sign of depression in teens. They have a self-defeating attitude a lot of times. We're hearing them say, I'm not good enough or smart enough or good looking enough. If they have bizarre sleep patterns, more time in bed or less time sleeping, substance use, weed and alcohol is largely available at this age, aggression, maybe getting into fights, acting out, that could look like running away or being very verbally disrespectful, risk taking, doing anything that they know could cause harm, trying to beat a train and racing over the train tracks, for example, or problems in school. Cognition problems are first signs. Even if the grades are fine, the work can take them a lot longer, and that might be a sign of depression. So it can look different at different ages, but the key is to understand what's normal at different developmental stages and what's normal for a particular kid and their personality and temperament. I was going to show this video, but I do not have the ability to share audio, so I'm going to summarize it. A lot of our work is centered on real teens from across the country who have experienced depression and were brave enough to share their stories with us. So in this one, we learned from Lindsay. She is the daughter of first generation immigrants, and she talks about how for her depression felt like little tornadoes in her mind, and that she didn't have the vocabulary when she was younger to describe it because it's not something she talked about in her family. So we have a lot of different videos that show different backgrounds and different experiences with depression. This one was focused on signs and symptoms. We also have some on help seeking and treatment, and coping strategies. I'll talk more about the videos in a bit. This is on our website as well, so if you're interested in watching the video, you can find it there. And as much as we try to focus on these real teens, we always have a positive message and hope that things can get better. No one can hear that, so I'm going to skip it. The risk factors of depression, there are some known risk factors: a personal or family history of depression, major life changes, trauma or stress, and certain medical illnesses or medication can all be risk factors. So those are some things to keep in mind. I want to bring up treatment because these statistics show the need for treatment. Most young people do not get the treatment they need and deserve. But by equipping schools with the resources and education, young people can know that help is available. School mental health services are very important. Approximately 2/3 of teens receive mental health treatment at school. So the more we educate the adults in the school buildings about depression and suicide, the more students will learn that they can ask for help at a school. Undiagnosed, untreated, or inadequately treated mental illnesses can significantly interfere with a student's ability to learn, grow, and develop. And since children spend so much of their productive time in educational settings, schools offer a unique opportunity for early identification, prevention, and intervention that serve students where they are. So in 2021, an estimated 41% of adolescents received treatment, which means that 59% did not. Stigma and barriers can play a big role in youth not receiving the treatment they need. So again, of those teens receiving mental health treatment, 2/3 are in school. So all of you play a very important part in these kids' lives. Now I want to talk about the warning signs of suicide because it is the #2 cause of death for young people ages 10 to 24. Even though actual incidents of suicide are relatively rare, it's really important to ask if you're concerned about what you're hearing or observing. Asking if someone is thinking about suicide will not plant the idea in their head. Suicide is tied to intense psychological pain, hopelessness, and feeling like there's no other way to relieve that psychological pain. But most people give verbal or behavioral clues within the week or so leading up to their death, and we can watch out for those things to get them help. So observable signs of depression can include a loss of interest in activities, a depressed mood, irritability, and intense frustration. If they start talking about or writing about not being around anymore or having no reason to live, saying things like, I want it to be over, I won't be here next year, you won't see me again. In general, if they say something puzzling or cryptic in regards to life and death, it's really important to ask what that means. Looking for a way to kill themselves, such as searching online for materials or means and having a plan. If they start giving away prized possessions or saying goodbye to everyone because they no longer have a need for them, or if they're putting their affairs in order. If they're feeling unbearable pain, hopelessness, or feeling like they're trapped, saying, I can't bear it anymore, there's no way to pull myself out of this. Feeling like they don't belong or that they're a burden to others, acting as if they're already gone and everyone would be better off without them, or intense shame can also be signs of this. Taking risks like driving extremely fast, extreme mood swings, using drugs or alcohol early. These are all signs of suicide or that they're planning an attempt for suicide. So we want to create a web of safety around students, and one person can make a really big difference. but no one should feel like they're alone in the responsibility of a child's safety. So that's why it's important for schools to have a plan in place for helping a student in crisis so that all of the staff can really work together. Some of the risk factors of suicide are depression or other mental health disorders or substance abuse disorder, a certain medical conditions or chronic pain, a prior suicide attempt, a family history of suicide, if someone has guns or firearms in the home, recently being incarcerated, or recent exposure to someone else's suicidal behavior can all be risk factors. Many people have some of these risk factors, but they don't attempt suicide. And it's important to note that suicide is not a normal response to stress. Suicidal thoughts or actions are a sign of extreme distress and they should not be ignored. And then it's really important to focus on being sensitive and trauma informed because we know young people do have a lot of trauma in their lives. Over 60% of children have been exposed to some sort of violence or abuse. So it's reasonable to assume that a lot of students in a school have been exposed to at least one traumatic event at some point in their lives. No matter how big or small that event is, people experience trauma when they witness or are exposed to an event that presents a real or perceived threat to well being or safety, and the event causes the person to feel fear or helplessness. So, traumatic events can bring on strong feelings that might strain someone's ability to cope. And children might have challenges that affect their social and academic performance at school, including maybe difficulty sustaining attention, concentration, and completing tasks. And we really want to remember that a child's misbehavior might not be intentional at all, but an involuntary discharge of traumatic stress that's been stored up. So we try to keep that in mind with all of our programs, and anytime a sensitive topic is addressed in the classroom, we offer ideas of how to be sensitive and trauma informed. We want to remember that students might come to the classroom with different values, cultural and religious beliefs, and ideas about these topics. So educators should infuse language and guidelines that support those sensitive and personal discussions in classrooms. Students might have experienced trauma, which can impact their ability to thrive and be healthy. So, we want to remember as teachers that the student who has experienced trauma is not trying to push our buttons, it's just a reaction to what they've experienced in the past. And students might have difficulty sharing ideas and discussing these ideas with their peers. So, again, we want to make sure there's maybe the right to pass or not talk about it, creating a safe space for that discussion, and seeking opportunities to instill hope, resilience, and safety. Another idea is talking to a student one on one and asking what's going on in their life and how you can support them. Maybe having them listen to music or taking a walk or getting them a snack can help them through the day. And creating those routines that create that community feeling within the classroom will be really beneficial throughout the whole year. It's also important to remember that young people feel like they have a difficult time asking for help. Some of them don't even want to ask for help with math. And so talking about their mental health can be a really daunting task. Over the years, we've spoken to a lot of young people, and here are some barriers that they've told us they feel like are preventing them from asking for help. They don't want to feel like a burden. They don't want to disappoint anyone. They're not even sure if what they're experiencing is a problem. They might feel ashamed and embarrassed. They might think there's no hope, so there's no point in asking for help. They might start doing comparisons and think that their problems aren't that big compared to other people or that they should be able to handle it on their own. They might think they don't deserve help or support. Someone else in their life might have already told them that they're fine and to just look at the positive, and they might think that they're being dramatic. So it's really important in all of our resources and all of our teaching that we really emphasize to young people that we're available to listen and here to help because they're already focusing on so many other things that they might not want to ask for it. If a student does want to talk to you, particularly after you've taught a classroom program which discusses depression, suicide, and good mental health, it's really important to be there for them. They might ask for help about anything, and there's a lot of steps that we can take just to make that conversation go smoother. It's very important to stay calm and listen carefully, to acknowledge what they say and thank them for trusting you and to validate their experience. And we also want you to remember to take care of yourself in this instance. We can go a long way helping a child simply by acknowledging what they say and treating them with respect and sensitivity, but there are limits to the kind of support that you can provide. And teachers are not responsible for diagnosing or treating a student, so we want to remember that. Their job is to direct them to the counselors or psychologists at the school to get them that diagnosis. And also, it's important to acknowledge that this could be a very emotional interaction for you as the adult as well. And it can be a really intense conversation. So remember to take care of yourself as well. So if you're concerned about a student, we suggest making note of the changes that you see in their behavior, especially when it seems like it's not typical. We have a mental health checklist that could be helpful to give to teachers who are noticing this. It has the first 9 symptoms from the DSM-5 for depression, and then there are also signs of things that you might just notice in the classroom, like a drop in school performance, frustration, inability to focus. So you can have the teacher document the behavior for 2 weeks, have a conversation with the student, with the counselor, and refer back to what you see and using language that we'll use on the next slide. And then you can set aside a private time to talk. So this can be really helpful as counselors. This could be really helpful to give to teachers who are maybe noticing a student who's struggling so that they have an action plan before they go forward into having that conversation. Then we also have a handout on intervention language and being a trusted adult to help people get through those tough conversations. We've taken I notice, I care, and how can I help approach. So for I notice, you say, is everything okay? I notice you have been blank, and then you fill in with what you've noticed from that child. Then you emphasize how much you care. I'm concerned because I know this isn't normal for you. And then how can I help? Let's come up with a plan together. So it's really important to ask those questions and to listen. Be prepared for the truth. It might be a really difficult conversation. Try to validate the student's feelings, and then definitely take action and follow up. It always has to end in an action. Even if a student says everything is fine, we want to leave the door open for future conversation. So that's our general overview on depression and suicide. And now I'm going to talk about Erica's Lighthouse and all the resources we have to help you be a prevention-based school. So we started in 2004 after the loss of Erica, who was a 14-year-old who died from her depression. It was the second suicide in the community that school year, and so parents got together and decided they wanted to do something so this would never happen again, and they created classroom programs on mental health, depression, and suicide awareness and prevention. So our mission is to be a free program always. Everything I'm going to talk about is completely free because we want everyone to have access to mental health education, and we want to bring our message to elementary, middle, and high schools. All of our resources are very evidence informed, so they really do work because we want to make sure if you're putting the time in to use them that they will be effective. We take a four-pillar approach. So we have classroom education, empowerment clubs, family engagement, and policy and staff training. And then we also have wraparound supports like a data center, a cultural framework for creating that positive mental health environment in school, strategic alignments, and some school-wide campaigns. All of this is on our resource portal, and all of it is free of charge. In terms of where we land in a school, we are on tier 1 in the MTSS program. So our hope is that we can offer you these resources that are universal for all students. They can be implemented by a counselor, they can be implemented by the health teacher or some sort of co-teaching moment. But the hope is that we're taking some of that mental lift off you so that counselors have more ability to do some of that tier 2 and tier 3 work because all students are receiving that tier 1. So we really want to help you in the school community just have that culture of talking about mental health and knowing how to take care of their mental health. So for our classroom education, we have 3 different levels. Level 1 is called We All Have Mental Health for grades 4 through 6. This focuses on everyday feelings versus overwhelming feelings. Level 2 for grades 5 through 9 is depression awareness, and it starts to go into depression as a mood disorder. And level 3 is depression education and suicide awareness. So that goes a step further and talks about suicide as well. All of our programs have a focus on seeking help and good mental health practices. Our classroom programs are on the Suicide Prevention Best Practices Registry. They're evidence informed. They're all bilingual in English and Spanish, and they're skills based and very turnkey and adaptable. And I'm going to show you some examples in the next few slides. So our program objectives are to create mental health literacy or depression literacy for students, for them to have good mental health practices, to reduce stigma, and to increase help-seeking skills. All of our classroom education components come with these things: videos, facilitator instructions, student-facing slides, student workbooks, exit tickets, student bookmarks, and pre and post tests. So essentially everything you need to teach the lesson is pre-made and ready to go, but you can always download it and make edits to fit your classroom or your school. We have a full program that's 4 lessons. It's 3 days of content and 1 day that's a skills check. And if you use those, they meet National Health Education Standards 1, 3, 4, and 7. We know a lot of places don't have time to teach 4 lessons to kids if you're pushing in, so we also have a standalone lesson that's a condensed version of that program. It's just 1 lesson that's 40 to 45 minutes, and it will go over signs and symptoms, help-seeking behavior, and coping strategies as well. So regardless of if you use our 4 days of lessons or our 1 days, they're all pre-made, ready to go. Again, available in English and Spanish. So our level 1 program for our younger kids, grades 4 through 6, if you use our 4-day program, focuses on understanding mental health, discovering different coping strategies, and learning about help seeking. And then the last thing is a unit assessment to show what they've learned. But our unit assessments are really fun. They're like making a blog or a comic book. They're not just like a multiple choice test or anything. So here's some examples of what those resources look like. This is the slideshow that's ready to go. Again, you can download it and make edits, or you can use it exactly as is, but it's based off of these 2 people, Sasha and Andre, and what they're going through. We have different activities, like a what would you say or do activity, and that assessment that they would do at the end would be a blog or a video post. You have the option of printing these out and handing them out to students, or electronically uploading it to Google Classroom or whatever online system that you use. For the younger kids, we do have a quick little exit ticket as well about a trusted adult that they can talk to, because we want to make sure every student has a trusted adult. I was going to show this video, but again, the audio doesn't work. But essentially, Sasha is going through a period of sadness, and she talks to her mom, and her coping strategies make her feel a lot better. Whereas Andre has been feeling like there's a river rushing through his head. He's tried the coping strategies, and they're still not working, and he just like doesn't want to feel this way anymore. And when Sasha talks to him about what she's been going through, she really encourages him to talk to someone, and he goes and talks to the counselor and gets some help, and things get better for him. So it really helps explore that idea of everyday feelings of sadness versus those overwhelming feelings. So they're not naming depression or suicide at this point, but it's a really good starting place for kids to learn about mental health. Then depression awareness is our middle school-ish level. The first lesson is signs and symptoms of depression. The second lesson is on help seeking. The third lesson is on coping strategies. And then that 4th lesson is a skills check. Here's an example of the facilitator guide. So as you can see, the teacher has a full script written out slide by slide that they can read off of. Of course, you're welcome to go off script. We just have everything you need ready to go. And we have that slideshow again in English and in Spanish. And the materials look a little bit more mature since it's an older age range. We have a role play situation for them to try. The homework is actually very fun. It's a mental health checklist, and they try a different coping strategy for a night or a week, and they reflect on how it made them feel and if they liked it. And then we've got that skills check at the end. So again, really fun, interactive, skills-based resources for kids to use. And like I mentioned before, we have those classroom videos that are very authentic. These are not actors. They're real students from across the country sharing their stories. And they come from all different backgrounds. Some of these students are immigrants or moved from Mexico. Some are dealing with their parents' divorce, sports pressure, academic pressure, relationship issues. There's all different sorts of reasons why they might have depression, as well as no reason at all. But they all come from different backgrounds, and the hope is that your students would be able to see themselves reflected in these stories. And then our level 3 program, which is based more for high school, is on depression education and suicide awareness. So that first lesson is on signs and symptoms of depression, understanding that there's not just one reason someone has it and there might be no reason at all, and being able to access information on depression. Lesson 2 is self-care, being able to understand different ways to take care of yourself and to list some valid and reliable resources of where to go when you need support. Lesson 3 is on getting help. And then lesson 4 is that performance assessment. Again, there's that facilitator guide and the slideshows ready to go for students and teachers. And these are some of the materials. So we have, this is sometimes called not a bingo sheet, but you go around and you write down who can tell you, like, who can define self-care, who can list a resource at the school, and it gets them up and moving and talking to each other to make sure they do all know this information. Instead of just videos, we also have stories from those students I mentioned earlier, like written out. And then they have a performance assessment. So their skills check is very fun. They can make like a comic or a podcast and make sure that they understand warning signs of depression and accurate causes of depression as well and stuff like that. I was going to show this other video. This just talks more about the different teens, and I just really want to emphasize that our videos focus on positivity and hopefulness and just really emphasizing that these kids are not alone and that things will get better. Then we also have these student bookmarks. So we want to make sure that students know where they can access a trusted adult at the school. So there's a blank space on the bottom here to write the counselor's name and room number down, or the name of the school social worker. And we encourage you to put the room number down so that they know where to find you in the building, because they might not have seen you before. We also want to remember that there are just a lot of easy, positive coping strategies and different tips that they can use. They could also write down a second trusted adult, not just the counselor, if they want to, and that could be a parent or a guardian, a coach, teacher, a therapist, or another adult from their family. For our level 2 and level 3, so that's more for our middle and high school, we do have self-referral cards that you can use after you teach a lesson. We don't use screeners, we use these instead, but they are optional. It gives students the choice to talk to a trusted adult in the next 24 hours, in the next week, or that they don't feel the need to talk to a trusted adult, and then everyone turns it in, so there's no stigma about, oh, well, one kid turned it in and one kid didn't, so that kid must need help. Everyone turns it in. This is really important as long as you have the support necessary in your school to handle these referrals. So again, like if you have a health teacher teaching this class, they wouldn't use this unless they had talked to you as the counselor and made a plan together about how to deal with referrals. We don't want to use this unless you do have the support needed for those kids who want to talk to someone. Often there will be an uptick in students who need support after these lessons. A lot of the time it might be kids coming in because they want to talk about a friend that they're worried about, or they might be, wanting to talk about themselves. So people do find this very helpful as long as they have that plan in place for being able to support those kids and dealing with the referrals. If you don't want to use them, you just don't print them out or don't post the Google link online, and you can just skip it, or you can use it yourself. So besides those lessons that we have a lot of optional additional worksheets and resources that you can use to push into a classroom and teach about mental health. We have this Jeopardy game that's really fun. It's in English and in Spanish to talk about mental health and stress and coping skills. Mental Health Recharge is this really great resource. We have an online version and physical cards that you can buy, and they're just 5-minute classroom breaks to boost mental health. One second. They have different categories like physical, mindful, emotional, stuff like that, and they're just good little brain breaks. And then the Teen Toolbox is also really cool. It's this website where the teens can click through themselves And based off of different answers to questions that they ask, they get directed to different information to look at. So they might start clicking and say, I want to learn about mental health because I'm not sleeping well and I want to know how to talk to someone about it. And through all of those, it will lead them to a website that has a little video, a little information, and then extra resources that they can use if they want to learn more and they can go back through. So that's really great because it's more independent research for the kids. And we do have a worksheet to go along with it if you wanted it to be more of a structured activity. We also have text from a friend. This is super fun. It's like an animated thing that they click through and they're receiving texts from a friend and they want to look for red flags that indicate their friend might need help. So they'll get like 3 different options of how to respond and they click one and get some feedback on it. These are, again, all on our website and all free. Our program can really fit anywhere. If you have an advisory or a homeroom, it could fit in that if you cut up the lessons to be shorter, depending on how long that is. Often people teach it in health class or in PE. The lessons are about 40 to 45 minutes, but they're very flexible. If you don't have that time, you could always cut an activity. You could just break it into smaller increments, or if you actually have a longer period, you can extend it with more activities. We also have a data center. So if you choose to use our classroom programs, we do have a pre-test and a post-test, and that can show you how effective the lessons are because students will show increased confidence in taking care of their mental health and understanding signs and symptoms, stuff like that. This is anonymous, so it's just by the school or by the district. We don't collect any data on the students' names or emails or anything like that. We also have these school-wide campaigns, so these can be used for special occasions or whenever it's needed. I already talked about Recharge and Teen Toolbox, but we do have Give Voice for National Suicide Prevention Week in September. That has 1 activity per day. And then for May, which is coming up, so maybe this is something you will all be interested in. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we have something called a Positivity Pledge. So we have 1 activity per day for the whole month. And they're very short activities. It might be reading something, going on a walk, sending a nice message to a friend, calling someone you haven't talked to in a while. But they're really fun little activities that just, together make that pledge. If your school has like a mental health club or a student council, they could take charge of this. If they don't, you as the counselor could always take charge or administration, read it out during the morning announcements. Maybe they take time to do it during homeroom. It's just one idea. Speaking of clubs, we do also offer a lot of resources in starting an empowerment club. So this is student to student, and they're really just trying to reduce stigma, promote positivity and good mental health, encourage help seeking, and educate the community. We have over 50 turnkey activities for clubs so that they can promote good mental health, normalize those conversations, and they're broken down into different categories so students can mix them up and have different focuses throughout the year. Here are some pictures of different schools and the activities they've run. So for example, one that we have is bubble breathing. Always our activities come with a purpose, objective, the materials, and the instructions to use it. So bubble breathing is to teach about mindful breathing, the breathing in and out, and there are actually bubbles involved. How full is your cup is one people really like, where they take a moment to see if their cup is full. That means they're feeling very overwhelmed. If their cup is empty, maybe they're feeling like they can handle it all. And then clubs actually give out hot chocolate or lemonade, depending on the season. So that can be a nice thing because everyone likes free food at school, but it's also encouraging them to be mindful. And another one that we have is locker notes, where the club would leave positive messages or drawings or just little notes on every single locker in the school. So students come in the next day and they all have this nice message to look at. So these are just a couple examples of what a club could do. We have 2 options with clubs. If you wanted to start an official Erica's Lighthouse Club, you can receive up to $500 per year in funding for activities. So if you did that cup one, we could pay you back for the costs of the cups and the poster board and the lemonade. There are a few requirements, but they're very minimal. and you can have access to all of our resources, support from Derek, our club coordinator, and the kids can have the opportunity to join the youth advisory board. If you already have a club like a Key Club or a SAD chapter or Hope Squad, you can become an affiliate club. So you still register online with us. You have access to all of our resources. You can still talk to Derek for help, and you can still join our youth advisory board. You just don't get that money since you're not an official club with us. You can also start as an affiliate and then become an official club in a year or two if you want to make that transition and have access to that $500 per year. We also have a lot of family engagement because we know it's really important that whatever we're doing at school is supported at home with mental health. So we have workbooks, workshops, and a lot of actionable resources. Our workbooks, we have 3 of them. I'll talk about each topic in a little bit more depth, but they could be sent out as a PDF or they could be printed out and sent home. And we also have a lot of supplemental worksheets and resources. This is great for counselors because you can kind of keep it in your back pocket and send the relevant ones to families who need it. So we have criteria for diagnosing depression or anxiety, how to share information with a sibling about what's going on, questions to ask insurance, all different ones that are really helpful. Our first workbook is called We All Have Mental Health. This is a really good tier 1 workbook, maybe to send out to all families. It especially pairs well with our classroom education components. That way, families and students all have the same vocabulary to talk about mental health. Really good for everyone. It's available as an audiobook in English or in English and Spanish in a text format. So it really just talks about that basic understanding of mental health, being a trusted adult at home, and having that supportive environment. The second workbook is Concerns About Your Child, so it dives a little bit deeper into concerns of stress, anxiety, or depression, being that trusted adult, normalizing conversations at home, and really trying to take care of yourself. Again, this could be a great one to send out to everyone, or it might be something you keep just for those parents who are feeling more concerned about their child. And then our third workbook is on getting help. So this one's very specific about navigating like the system, therapy, different types of therapists, medication, treatment styles, and insurance. So again, this one might not be needed for everyone. This might be for only a couple families, but it can be really helpful as a foundation to get them started. We also have family workshops. So these are just short sessions that teach families about different topics. Our first topic is We All Have Mental Health, and our second topic is depression and suicide. You have 2 options with this. We have an on-demand workshop that you can send home. It's like a 20-minute video per topic. I would not send them home at the same time. I would probably space those out. But they're available on YouTube or Vimeo, so parents would not need to make an account with us. You could just send that link to them yourself, and they can just watch it on YouTube. Or if you'd rather host an in-person night, you can host your own workshop using our resources. We would give you the facilitator guide and the slideshow and all the activities, and you could host a workshop and bring families into the school. That's also another really good option because it leaves more time for Q&A and you can kind of be more specific about what processes and supports you have at your own school. But again, we've tried to do the heavy lifting for you by making the slideshow and the guide for you. And then we have just a lot of resources for families, just like the clubs have those fun activities at school to talk about mental health and promote positivity. We have activities that families could do together just to normalize that environment. So one is a conversation guide for families, just with different prompts to get them talking to their kids about mental health. Some of these are more about meditation and different types of breathing exercises. So this one's called word breathing. And they inhale positivity and they exhale negativity. And it goes through a whole list of things that they can inhale and exhale. We have vocabulary lists just to make sure families are on the same page. And then we have lots of really fun and silly ones as well, like making a slime jar that they can shake up and watch settle down as a mindfulness thing, or going on a color walk, or playing a game with candy. So there's lots of different kinds that range from more serious to more just positivity promoting. And then lastly, we have school policy and staff training. We want to make sure that all staff in the building have that buy-in to creating that positive school climate and culture and for understanding signs and symptoms. So we have staff training, staff well-being activities, policy suggestions, and additional resources. Our staff training comes in two options. We have an asynchronous option online. There are 3 modules, and then you get a certificate of completion when you're done. The modules are videos and short quizzes. It takes about 45 minutes to an hour. We have some districts that require every single staff member in the district to take it asynchronously. That includes the bus driver, the teachers, the cafeteria workers, everyone. We also have some schools that just want the health teacher and the counselor to take it. So it's really very flexible. We also have the option for group training. So those would be 3 modules in person, hosted by your own qualified staff member. It would come with those pre-made slides and the handouts and activities, but you could host it during a professional development day or during one of your PLC meetings to go over that. And that can be nice again because you have that opportunity for Q&A with teachers and to talk more about your procedures at your school. Regardless of if you choose to do the individual or the group training, we will cover signs and symptoms, helping a student, and crisis intervention. We really believe that this training is super important, not just for the people who might teach the lessons or the counselors, but for anyone in the building, because a trusted adult could be anyone in the building. It might be that you, as a counselor, go in and teach a lesson, but that a kid's trusted adult is the art teacher, and that's who they want to go talk to. And so making sure that the art teacher feels comfortable having these conversations and referring a student to support can be really important, regardless of who is teaching these mental health lessons. We also don't want anyone pouring from an empty cup, and we do think that having adults kind of model self-care and different behavior strategies can be helpful for students. So we do have a lot of ideas to promote staff well-being. Mindful meetings is one. We have a bunch of different options of just 5-minute activities to start a meeting out that are mindful. One is encouragements, where you write little nice notes on a mint and you give them out to people. We have some things that you can do school-wide for the staff, or some things that are individual ideas that they can use to center themselves throughout the day. And then we also have school policy suggestions and resources. So if you wanted to make a mental health task force at your school, we have resources for that. A checklist for suicide prevention efforts, or again, some of these are just good back pocket resources to be able to give to classroom teachers on intervention language, making sure that they have a mental health checklist or an accommodation checklist, stuff like that. So really it goes from school-wide to classroom specific resources that you can use, as well as different evidence-informed resources just to prove that we know what we're talking about and that our stuff is effective. So all of that is available on our website. If you go to ericaslighthouse.org and you click on the register for free access button, it will ask you for your name and email, the state and the school that you work at, and then it will send you your login information within about 10 minutes. And then you will have access to everything I just discussed. The QR code also works for that. I'm going to click off this, but I will be back in a second. We are free, but we stay free by having you all tell us when you use our resources. So we have this thing called a report on impact form. It is on the bottom of every single web page on our portal, and you will also get emails from us asking if you've used it. And basically, you just tell us your name, your school, and what you used. So let's say that you taught a lesson to 6th graders, you would say, oh, I taught lesson 2, 600 people. Or if you sent out that family workbook, you would just say, well, I know I have 500 kids at the school, I sent it out to 500 families. And it doesn't matter if like one kid was absent or you can't prove that a parent read it or not. The point is just that you are letting us know that you used us so we can go tell donors that we're making a really big impact, and they will keep giving us money so that we can stay free. I'm going to click on this last one. So this QR code again is for ericaslighthouse.org. My email is kayla@ericaslighthouse.org. And I could see a lot of things popping up in the chat, but I didn't read them. So I'm going to take this moment. I'm going to leave this up so you can get that QR code, but I'm now ready for Q&A.
All right. All right. Well, thank you so much. So many resources I was not even aware of yet. We are really excited, and I can say, as a school counselor in a rural public school, that free is always my friend. So we're really excited for that. There were a few questions put in the chat while you were presenting, and if there are any other attendees who have additional questions or need clarification on anything, we encourage you to put that in the chat at this time. Brittany asked, do you have any recommendations on how to support parents who hesitate or refuse to ensure that students receive therapy, particularly for those with negative perceptions of mental health needs?
Yeah, obviously this is, I would think, something that takes some time. I would suggest trying to get those family workshops and workbooks off the ground because education can often combat stigma. So teaching them about like what does it mean if their child has depression and that it's not some interpersonal failing, but something chemical happening in their brain. So we do have a lot of different resources to educate families on what mental health is. And I think that's a really good starting point. But I also think it probably depends on the parent and the relationship they have with you at the school. But I always think education is a good place to start. And that might be one of the times where you try to host an in-person family night so that they can ask those questions to you face to face and not just ignore whatever you send out.
Okay. Also, Monica asked, have you seen the clubs be effective at the middle school level?
Yes, we have seen clubs actually at the elementary level, the middle, and the high school level. We have a lot of support for people getting a club off the ground. There's like little training videos that the students watch so that they feel like they can be a leader for their peers. And then we have a lot of like sample agendas of how you might run a meeting. Derek, our empowerment coordinator, he sends out newsletters every month, and he also has office hours that students could pop into or the teacher could pop into. Um, and we love it. We see so many pictures coming in of students doing different activities, and it's really great and it's good at all levels.
Awesome. Okay, I don't see any other questions at this point, Kayla. So I will say to our attendees, thank you so much for joining us. This absolutely seems like such a great resource. And I will say, for myself, as being a school counselor now for 25 years, the uptick that we are seeing in students who are talking about suicide, suicidal ideation, and all of that linking back to depression, some really great information shared, but also just the wealth of resources was so very helpful. So we just want to thank you, Kayla, for being with us today, for sharing all of these wonderful resources and information with our members. And definitely make sure that you have all of Kayla's contact information. You can reach out to her later if you have additional questions. And before you jump off, don't forget, vote in our board of director elections. You should have received an email that will take you to a poll where you can vote. Voting is going to close Thursday. And then don't forget, tomorrow's the deadline for School Counselor of the Year application. So don't miss out on those opportunities. Thank you so much, Kayla. Thanks, everybody, for being with us. Have a great day.